What is going on, guys? Today I bring you round 7 of Torneio Nacional de Honra, the last tournament I played in 2024. And in this round, I got paired up against Lucas Gonçalves, the number 1 rated player in the tournament with a rating of 1990. At this point, I had the white pieces. This was a very important game for me to try to get back into the top 3 of the standings. And let's see how the game went. So I started with e4, he went e5. What I knew about Lucas is that he always plays the same repertoire as far as I know. I don't know if he changed it recently, but at this point he was always playing e45, and I tried to find something to play against him. I ended up just watching like a video 1 hour before the game with a tricky idea in the four knights line, which was h3. To be honest, I have no recollection of the ideas on that video, so I'm not gonna try to pretend that I know what I'm talking about in this line. I don't think I've looked into it again after this game, so yeah, it had an idea. That's all I knew. So here my opponent thought for a while and also played this weird a6 move, and at this point I think we were just both out of book because I also didn't remember seeing a6 being covered in the video. So I just decided to switch back to what people normally play in these four knights, which is d4, takes, bishop e4, knight takes on c6, b takes on c6, and after bishop d3, d5. And we have a very normal standard four knights position with the inclusion of h3 and a6. And if you ask me, I think h3 is more useful than a6 because at least it stops ideas with bishop g4. But yeah, it's a normal game, pretty equal. I took on d5, he takes back with a pawn, I castle, he castles, and now the typical idea of going bishop g5, pinning this knight and trying to activate the queen and the rest of the pieces. We'll all go to natural squares. Here my pawn plays c6, consolidate this d5 pawn, and here I play queen f3, putting pressure on f6. My opponent goes back with the bishop to e7, and after a natural move, rook fe1, my opponent also kept developing with bishop e6, and here a nice move in this type of positions that I knew, which was knight e2. The knight on c3 was my worst piece at the moment with the a1 rook. So the knight on c3 and the a1 rook are the pieces that are the least happy about their role in the game, so I need to improve them. And yeah, this knight is just dominated by this pawn structure here, so I need to reroute it, and knight e2 is a very nice move. Here my opponent goes knight d7, so he's trying to trade some pieces and get some breathing space. Here I take on e7, he takes back with the queen, and here I play this queen g3 move, which is a little bit weird, not gonna lie. I think more natural is knight d4 or knight f4. Knight f4 is probably less good than knight d4 because of this like queen f6 move, and now this knight feels a bit awkward here in front of the queen. But I think knight d4 would be very nice, just targeting this e6 bishop and putting the knight on this monstrous square after something like queen d6. If I took on e6, this would be bad for me because this center is very strong and it's not easy, or it's not even possible for me to stop this push. But I can simply just leave the knight here on c3, and eventually, if my opponent tries to kick the knight, then I might consider taking on e6 or even just playing knight f5. Yeah. But this didn't happen in the game. In the game, I actually played queen g3. And now the idea was that after my opponent plays this move, queen f6, attacking on b2, I decided to infiltrate with my queen into d6. And yeah, I just thought that if my opponent took on b2, I would take on c6. And I thought this was good for me because the pawn structure is very dubious here for black, but the computer doesn't like this for white. Says that after 95, I'm actually the one in that can end up in a bit of trouble. But my opponent decided to play knight e5, and now I found this cute move, which which is probably the best move in the position, which was knight f4, defending the bishop with the knight. And also what happened in the game is that my opponent took on f4, and now I take back the piece that I just lost. And we enter this endgame after g6, b3, king g7, rook a e1, and king f6. We have this endgame with one pair of bishops, light square bishops, versus two rooks on each side. And we had still a lot of time. I think we had around like 50 minutes on the clock, maybe close to an hour. And yeah, I just didn't feel very comfortable in this game, not gonna lie. And yeah, it's actually pretty tricky. I didn't know, and I still not sure what is the best plan here. For white, for black, I kind of see some ideas, but for white, it's not so clear. I think I need to get rid of this bishop here on e6, which is blocking the activity of my rooks, and also find a way that this bishop can be useful, because at the moment this bishop is completely blocked by the pawn chain. But okay, I ended up playing this very weird move, bishop f1, which clearly indicates that I don't know what I'm doing. g4 would be better, but I don't know, I have this feeling that I shouldn't just push the pawns in front of my king, but this is an endgame, and in this case, this would probably be my best bet, because I can also activate the king without worrying about getting mated or anything like that. But okay, I went bishop f1. My opponent plays a5, which is very natural, just trying to break through and destroy my pawn chain. I go a4. Now I like put all my pawns on light squares, but okay, shouldn't be the end of the world. My opponent also has a lot of pawns on the light squares. Okay, my opponent uses the semi-open b file to infiltrate the position. I go back with the rook on e3 because my rook wasn't doing anything on e5, and my opponent plays this very active looking move, rook b4. It looks like I'm starting he's starting to put some pressure, maybe double onto b file, maybe, you know, play c5, c4. And yeah, I was very worried at this point. And I'm just gonna make some random moves to illustrate the idea. I was worried about my opponent just pushing this pawn, and now it's not so clear what I do. You know, if I take here on c4, it takes back, and now this pawn is weak. This pawn is also gonna be weak. My rooks are on the wrong file here. My bishop is super passive, so I was worried that if I didn't do anything direct, the position could become sort of like this, and I would just slowly lose. And I found a very nice move here, which was rook c3, and this was kind of a poison move. This move was not just a random one. Actually, I had a nice idea with this move, and my opponent actually fell for the idea. He didn't realize the dangers of the position. He played rook fc8, which is passive, but it looks like it just, you know, refutes this rook c3 move, because now he's preparing to push this pawn. But he missed that the idea was not only to take on c6, but also to play rook c5. And all of a sudden, there's no way my opponent can actually defend the pawn on a5 and the c6 pawn at the same time, because this rook on b4, which looked so active and so good, now just looks dumb and is useless, because yeah, he can't go back to defend this pawn. Actually, my opponent was visibly super frustrated, and he just realized that he just blundered the position away. And I started to become nervous, because I knew that all of a sudden, like, I might just be winning. I'm up a pawn, and yeah, I just need to find a way to break through and just utilize my passed pawn on the a file. But yeah, let's quickly going back here. My opponent had to find a very hard move, which was rook b6, kind of admitting that this rook b4 move was bad. And now the idea is that if I try to attack this pawn now, he can bring the rook from the f file to the a8 square, and slowly is gonna kick out my rook with king e7, king d6, and eventually push through, and it's just slightly better here. But okay, thankfully for me, it didn't realize my idea, and we get into this position where I play rook a6 here, which is a bit of an inaccurate move, because now my opponent plays king c7, and I kind of felt like I needed to play rook a7. I should have gone immediately to a7, probably just better, because now I wasted the tempo going a6 to a7. And now here, like, of course I was happy about my position being up a pawn, but I wasn't that relaxed yet. I was still nervous because my rook just feels very out of the game, and it was not so clear for me how I, even though I'm up a pawn, how I would stop this counterplay with c5, c4. And, you know, to my expectations, my opponent actually just went through with the plan that I was worried about. But actually here, it was the most important moment of the game, the critical move that I had to find an idea, which I tried to find, but I couldn't. The best move here in the position and the winning idea is actually bishop e5, and this is very nice. My bishop on f1 was very passive, literally doing nothing active, and if I waited one more move, my opponent could easily just go c4 and block my bishop on f1 or e2 forever, and that wouldn't be good. And now with this bishop b5 move, there's not only the idea to activate the bishop, but it's also a very nice idea to just completely crush black's position. And the heart of black's position is really this bishop, which is, even though it's super passive, it's actually just denying my rook's play. And here the point is that let's say my opponent keeps going with the plan of c4 to break my structure. I can take, pawn takes, and now I play this very, very nice move, bishop e8, and now there's no way to actually defend the f7 pawn, and the position is gonna fall apart for black. Actually, I don't know if I even got to see this position right here in my calculation, if I even saw this bishop e5 idea. I'm not sure, honestly. Probably not. I don't think if I saw it, I would have to play it. But looking at this for the first time when I was analyzing this position, I was worried about rook c7, because it looks like now I don't have time to take on f7, and if I just trade rooks here, it feels like I have no real chance of breaking through, and my position is actually a bit fragile, even though I'm up a pawn, because all of a sudden, like, this bishop is not gonna feel safe here. If I go back, then the rook activates, and the rook can be very annoying here. Maybe I also have to go into a more passive mode defending this pawn, and now his king comes in. My king is still far away from the action, and this can become very scary for me. But actually, there was this brilliant idea, which I don't think that I would ever see this with my skills right now, which was a5 check, and all of a sudden you might think, what is the problem? I just go king b7, this rook is defended. But now another check, a6, and now, okay, I go back to b6, what's the problem? Now I take, king takes, and a7, and now there's no way to stop a8, because the bishop is blocking this rook. There's no way to go back, and also if the king tries to stop this pawn, I always have rook a1. So yeah, it's just like completely winning. My opponent has to sacrifice the rook to stop the promotion. So yeah, I didn't see any of this. I just couldn't come up with a nice move. I couldn't see a clear way to just stabilize the position. I ended up playing this very bad move, which kind of almost loses all the advantage, which was rook a1. And this is a very dangerous square to put the rook, because now the rook is also far away from all the pieces. But my idea was that if my opponent eventually pushes the c4 pawn, this pawn would be defended, but it's not so clear. Like, my opponent can quickly try to play rook a8 and take this pawn, or even just like king a5, but okay, he has to prepare king a5 because of this rook being here. But okay, yeah, this rook a1 move was literally just a move that you play if you have no idea what you're doing, and I had no idea what I was doing, honestly. And my opponent just plays this very simple move, rook a8, already threatening some c4 ideas to win this pawn and destroy my structure. And yeah, I thought for a while my opponent was out of the board, and I just picked, like, all of a sudden I just saw an incredible idea of playing bishop e5 to e8 to attack this pawn, which was the previous idea that was winning before, but now, because I put the rook on a1, this is a losing idea. And I'm sure that you already saw it miles away, but during the game, I was completely clueless, and I played bishop e5. The worst thing is that I play this move. You have to write down your moves on the score sheet on tournaments. And I wrote up the move, then I looked back at the board, and I realized that I just lost the game in one move. And the most painful thing of all time here was that my opponent was just walking around checking other games. And I had to just sit there in complete agony and tilt, wait like 2 minutes for him to come back to the board, look at the board, like kind of look at me like, what the fuck are you doing? And just immediately taking on b5, and I resigned. I just had to wait for that. And yeah, these are the types of games that kind of make me question sometimes if I really want to keep working on chess, playing tournaments, because is it really worth it after like 4 years of playing? At the time was like 3 years of, or yeah, 3 years of playing competitive chess, and I still make these horrible, like, just beginner blunders. Like, do I really want to keep going? But I love this game way too much to just quit, and I don't like quitting. When I get a goal on my mind, I just want to push it and just give it my best and just try as much as I can to accomplish it. And I just put this national master goal in my mind, and I'm not going to stop until I get it, no matter what. And I didn't quit, but these games are just so painful that the thought of quitting really crossed my mind. And actually, I had to take a little bit of a break from chess competition in 2025 to kind of reflect a bit, because I was getting way too caught up on all this raiding and all this stuff. But yeah, this was the game. I didn't quit, but I had to put something on the title for you to click on it. And yeah, this wasn't the first time that I made this type of, like, really awful blunder. It's not gonna be the last as well, because I've played some games after this and I've made worse blunders than this. Even at this point in 2026, I still keep making awful blunders, and I really need to start looking at serious tactical training and serious board visualization and serious everything that can be um related to this type of blunders, like nerves and stuff like that. I need to work on all of that, because these can't keep happening. I can't keep throwing games like this. This is just like, it looks like match fixing, honestly. It's so bad, like, I can't even explain, bro. But yeah, guys, enough of yapping. I'll see you guys for round 8, and I hope you guys enjoyed this, because I surely didn't enjoy covering this game and playing it. So yeah, bye bye, guys, take care.